So the question is, well, actually the original concept here was to use a kind of a double stochastic here to prevent Wicks from taking out your stop loss. So if your stop loss is trailing the anaSuperTrend here, it's I guess it's somewhat common that the wick or the tail of a bar can take out your stop loss, right? And then the market continues on as this, as we can see right here. So the trader came up with a good idea to use a double stochastic, or I'm going to see a double SuperTrend system here. So instead of the stop loss trailing, right, the normal anaSuperTrend, he actually wants the stop loss to trail a wider anaSuperTrend, and then have a way to monitor if price actually crosses the standard anaSuperTrend or the inner SuperTrend. And if price crosses it, then exit the trade, close the trade out there. And so we can see that happens right here. So right here, this bar is what would actually close the trade out instead of the bar where the wick just touched the anaSuperTrend. Yeah. So that's the key to this. So the stop loss will actually trail the outer or the wider anaSuperTrend, and then BlackBird will monitor if price actually crosses it, if price actually closes right on the other side of the anaSuperTrend, like we have right here. A couple of things that we have to be aware of is, let's see here. Wow. Yeah, both the anaSuperTrends pretty much crossed at the same time. But let's go down here. All right, yeah, here's a good example here. So we can see that the anaSuperTrends are not in sync, right? They're out of sync here. So if you try to go long in this area, right, there's no anaSuperTrend to trail, right? Because the stop loss is supposed to trail this wider anaSuperTrend. But if you go long here, right, where is the wider SuperTrend? It's up here. So you can't have your stop loss above the market if you're taking a long trade, right? So this whole period here would prevent you from being able to take a long trade until the anaSuperTrend, the wider one that the stop loss is going to trail, so you can't go long until this wider one actually flips direction. So, so we had to kind of work out some other kind of temporary solution as to where to put the stop loss in the meantime, right? So we had to put that stop loss somewhere until the anaSuperTrend flips. And then once the two SuperTrends are in agreement, we need some kind of method to detect that. So in yesterday's workshop, we built a BloodHound signal, which is that just detects when the two anaSuperTrends are in sync with each other. So we're going to use BloodHound to tell BlackBird that, it's okay to have the stop loss start trailing, right, the wider anaSuperTrend. Now that the two SuperTrends are in sync. So what that does is that would allow you to, go long, on any of these bars here. It'll allow you to go long at any time, and then BloodHound will detect when the anaSuperTrends are in sync, And BloodHound will tell BlackBird that they're in sync, and then BlackBird can then move our stop loss to the wider anaSuperTrend and start trailing it. All right, so yeah, so that's kind of the key of what we're doing. So let's get BlackBird up and running. And first, let's get the simulated data feed going here. All right, let's get BlackBird up and running. All right, so I'm just going to make a market entry order. So, because this question purely focuses on the trailing stop loss mechanism here. So let's see, I'm going to start with a fixed stop loss. Well, either I could start with a fixed stop loss, or in this example, I have a swing low here. You know, maybe I could set the stop loss initially to the swing low. That seems to work out pretty good. Well, now instead of doing that, because using swing lows also kind of has its inherent issues as well, or swing points, I should say. Using swing highs or swing lows can also have their inherent issues that have to be overcome. So, yeah, the only real reliable stop loss that you can put is just a fixed stop loss offset. You know, if you're using indicators to place your stop loss, using indicators always present in issues. You know, because the indicators, this anaSuperTrend is a classic example. You know, we have this whole period here where the anaSuperTrend indicator isn't ready for a long trade. So I'm gonna build this using the best method, the best bulletproof method, which is just use a fixed tick stop loss, as your initial placement. So, and we'll just set that out there to 20 ticks for now. All right. So, just a 20 tick or some other kind of, stop loss offset distance is the only guaranteed way that you can get a stop loss placed in the right correction, right? If I try to use some kind of indicator, there's always some period in time where that indicator may not work for you. All right, so let's put this back here. So 20 tick offset like so. And let's go into the trailing stop loss. So here's where everything happens here, is in the trailing stop loss. All right. So let's set up the rule to trail the wider in a SuperTrend, like so. All right. So here's where we're going to use BloodHound to detect when these two anaSuperTrends are in sync with each other, right? When they're both on the same side of the market. So I'm going to use a BloodHound signal here to detect that. And I'm going to load up yesterday's workshop file. And there we go, from yesterday. So there we go. So from April 19th is when this is from. And let's take a look at there. So there's the logic for this. And yesterday I had today I had changed the anaSuperTrend settings here. So I'm going to make a quick adjustment in BloodHound. And it's this one. So you have to make sure that the anaSuperTrend settings in BloodHound right? Match the SuperTrend settings that you have on your chart, right? So yesterday, yesterday's BloodHound, I was using the original anaSuperTrend settings. You know, when this question originally came up in, I think it was September of last year, but I adjusted them today, so I need to make that setting adjustment in BloodHound as well. And let's see, what's the other one? Yeah, 8, 2.5, 15. Okay, there we go. So that's done. And now let's select the logic template to use. There we go. And now we need to select the signal trigger mode here. And we want signal in the same direction. Yeah. So the BloodHound logic was designed so that when the anaSuperTrend, when it's blue, right, and both blue lines are in sync with each other, or basically when we have two blue lines, BloodHound is going to give a long signal when they're both blue, and right, and we can see that when the anaSuperTrend's blue, that's telling you you're in a long trend. So you'd be taking long trades when the anaSuperTrend is blue, and since BloodHound's giving a long signal for this detection, right, that BloodHound signal would be in the same direction as the trade, right, as the BlackBird trade. So, all right, and the next thing is the action. So this is where we'll tell BlackBird to start moving the stop loss to trail the wider anaSuperTrend over here. So let's select an indicator value, and then we go put in our anaSuperTrend indicator, and again adjust the value to match the chart, right? And so the plot that we're seeing on the chart is the stop dot, so that's selected like so. And if we want, we can put like a 1 tick offset so that the stop loss is 1 tick below this wider anaSuperTrend if you want to do that, but I'll leave it with no offset like so. Okay, so the stop loss is going to be moved to the anaSuperTrend, and then the repeat, since we want the stop loss to keep trailing, you know, for the entire trade, we need to set the repeat to indefinitely. There we go. And indicators, right, they update themselves once per bar. So the repeat every 1 bar is exactly what we need. So no change there. Okay, so that is the trailing rule. Yeah, to get the stop loss to trade that wider SuperTrend. Once the two SuperTrends are in sync, now we need the other trailing rule to detect this wick here. Yeah. And BlackBird can actually detect, actually, I'm sorry. No, wrong. Not detect the wick. We're ignoring the wicks. We want to detect this. Here we go. Yeah, we need to detect when price closes on the other side of the interior anaSuperTrend. All right, so let's set that detection up. Okay, so I'm going to create another trailing rule here. And let's see, what should we call this? Okay, something like that. All right, so this trailing rule is going to exit. Well, it's going to exit this order set. It's not going to exit the trade, but it will exit this order set here, or it will exit this contract. Yeah. So we're going to use a trigger event, and we can compare price to an indicator, right? Which is exactly what we're doing. We're checking to see if the close of the bar closed on the other side of the anaSuperTrend. So input A, well, that's the closing price, already done for us. Input B, well, that's going to be the indicator that we're comparing the closing price to. So let's plug in the SuperTrend indicator. There we go. And so the inside SuperTrend is just using the default settings here. So we'll leave that alone, and the stop dot plot is already selected for us, so nothing else needs to be done. Like so. And if you want, you can say like add a tick offset, so that way the close of the bar has to close at least one tick past the anaSuperTrend, if you like. If you want to add a little more of a buffer there, you can say, make sure, so you take the anaSuperTrend, add a tick to it, and that means the closing price has to close one tick beyond the anaSuperTrend. If you'd like to do that, that's possible, or a tick or two, whatever you want. But I'm just going to leave it to 0 here. And then the mode. We could leave the mode alone. If you want to allow the closing price of the bar to actually equal the anaSuperTrend and consider that as the stop being hit and closing the trade out. But instead of using like a one tick offset buffer, I'll just say that the close has to be above the indicator. So if the closing price equals the indicator, that will not exit the trade. The close of the bar actually has to go beyond the SuperTrend indicator, even if it's by a fraction of a decimal. It just can't equal it. It has to go beyond it by a fraction of a decimal. So there we go. So for, actually no, these are backwards. Let's see here. So actually, yeah. So when the anaSuperTrend's red, right, we're in a short trade here. So the close of the bar needs to be above the SuperTrend. So let's reverse these here. There you go. So A, and A is the closing price. A needs to be above B, and what's B? B is our indicator. So yeah, what we have on the chart here is the closing price is above the indicator in a short trade situation here. There. So we've got the short trade figured out, and the long trade is almost always going to be the opposite. So there we go. So long mode is going to be A below B. All right, now the action. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to move the stop loss to the last price. So that'll move the stop loss to wherever the market is trading. And because the markets have been really volatile recently, it's a good idea to move that stop loss a few ticks past where the last price was traded, because the markets are moving so fast that they can actually move faster than your computer can calculate all this, and even faster than your data feed connection. So, by the time NinjaTrader receives that last price, the market could have already moved on a couple of ticks, right? And that's before BlackBird even receives the last price from NinjaTrader. So, So yeah, so just throw a few extra ticks in there just for good measure. And this repeat, we don't need a repeat because, once we move that stop loss into an area where it's going to, immediately get closed out, right? Well, that closes the whole order set. That closes that whole contract. So you don't have to repeat that anymore. That can only happen once. So leave the repeat to none. And that will do it. Yeah, that'll do it. There, let me save this. All right, there's today's date, and put a new name on it. Modify the name a little bit. Okay, so now here's the trick. Let's see if we can test this. Let me see if I'll build a 30-second chart here. All right, so let's take a short trade there, and I'll move the market up. There we go. There's a wick. Didn't close that trade out. All right, I'm just going to let this bar close out, and on the next bar, I'll move the market above the inner super trend. There we go. All right, so the bar closed above the inside anaSuperTrend and closed that trade out. And let's see, we have the oh no, we need this bar to close, and then the inside anaSuperTrend will flip on us. There we go. So here we go. The anaSuperTrend is flipped on us. So now, if we try and go long, what's going to happen? Well, our stop loss is just going to stay there at a 20 tick offset. Right, so I can let a couple of bars go by, right? And that stop loss is not going to move. So we can see the inside super trend there is moving, but our wider super trend is still on the wrong side of the market there. So let's move the market up here. So we need the wider super trend to flip down to a long trend mode. And we'll get that, I'll get that to do that on this bar here. There we go. That should do it. So price is crossing that anaSuperTrend. And yeah, so we just need one more bar here. All right, so our other super trend should start down here somewhere. And let's see, there it is, right there. All right, so as soon as this bar closes, I imagine this super trend will probably take a step up, and then our stop loss will trail it. Oh, not quite. The anaSuperTrend is still a tad bit below it. So let's move the market up, and we'll get this anaSuperTrend to move a little higher. And then our stop loss should then start trailing that anaSuperTrend. There we go. All right. Now the super trend took a step up, and our stop loss is trailing it. And let's test the closing of this order here. So I'm going to pull the market down, and we'll generate a wick breaking the inner super trend here, and make sure that the trade doesn't close out. Come on, market, get down there. Come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. All right. Now, go up, go up, go up. Move. Oh, this might close the trade out. Yep. Darn it. Couldn't get the market to move up quick enough, but all right. So there you go. The closing worked. Okay. And let's see. There's one more thing to test out here, or one thing to kind of note, right, with this system, since we're using the anaSuperTrend. Okay, so there is our super-trend. So the inner super-trend is up there. Now we can't. So you know, when you're using the super-trend, or I should say when you're using stop losses set to a super trend or any kind of like ATR trailing, you know, stop loss plot, you always have to take a trade in the direction, right, of the super trend indicator. So for example, if I try and go long, I can't go long, because we saw that the stop loss tried to, well, the trailing rule noticed that the close of the bar was below the super trend for a long trade. So I'm just taking a look to see if there's any solution to that. Yeah, there is a solution to that, but it requires more BloodHound logic. So, and actually, yeah, the logic should be pretty simple. Yeah, so just like with this, you know, trailing the wider super trend, we had to use some BloodHound logic to make sure that the super trends were in sync. Yeah, we need to do the same thing. Well, let's see, how can that be done? All right, I'm just kind of thinking about the BloodHound logic to see if it is really quick and easy. Well, all right. Yeah, I'm going to have to test a few things here. So I normally don't do this because I don't like to mix BloodHound and BlackBird workshops together, but I would like to get this solved in just one workshop here. So I'm going to break my rules here temporarily, and let's put BloodHound on here. There, so we can see, right, the BloodHound signal that we generated yesterday, which detects when the anaSuperTrends are in sync, right, when both the lines are blue. But if one line is red and one line is blue, then there's no signal from BloodHound, right? There's no output there. So when there is this output, that is what's telling BlackBird that it's okay to start trailing the anaSuperTrend. But now we need a logic. Let's see. Yeah, we need a logic that's. I think we just need to take the existing logic and then add something that's going to detect, yeah, this cross down. Copy the logic template here. All right, just need a name for this. All right, I guess this is good enough. So the close of the bar, or I'll just say close price crosses over the anaSuperTrend. Okay. Let's see, so I'm going to need a comparison solver. All right, let's see. So input A is going to be our closing price of the bar, and input B is going to be our anaSuperTrend. All right. Now the key to getting this guy working is I need to reverse the outputs here. So you'll notice that, right, when the close, like on this bar right here with the circle, the white circle, when the bar closed below the anaSuperTrend, I'm actually getting a short output. But I want to get a long output that's in sync with the rest of this logic, right? So basically I want to take this logic, I'm going to take this logic here, which tells me that the anaSuperTrends are in sync, and then I'm going to add another condition that says, well, only tell me when the anaSuperTrends are in sync and price had crossed the inside anaSuperTrend. So since my existing logic is giving me this short output, well, this solver here that's going to detect this situation, I need this to also give me a long output as well. So the way we're going to do that is like that. There. All right, so plug that in and then connect that in. There we go. Yep, like so. And actually, let's see, reverse dot. Oh yeah, you know what? I think the anaSuperTrend actually has yeah, this reverse dot I think actually identifies this bar here. So the logic actually might be a lot simpler. Let me check that out real quick. So we'll just do a simple test. And let's see what this reverse dot is. Yeah, that's right. I kind of remember now. Yeah, the reverse dot doesn't seem to be working as expected. Yeah. I don't think that reverse dot's working as expected, or I just don't understand what it's doing. So, okay. So, scrap that idea. Get rid of that solver. Get rid of that. And we'll just go with what we got here because it's working. All right. So, yeah, there we go. So, okay, so we got some BloodHound logic here. And let's get BlackBird back open. So now that we found another, basically another downfall of right, using an indicator and trying to trade with an indicator. Since we found another one, we're having to use BloodHound to kind of make all these exceptions so that way you can trade against the anaSuperTrend. All right, so we're taking this trailing rule here, the exit when close. Actually, let's see here. There we go. So we want to exit when the close crosses the anaSuperTrend. And so let's take this trigger. Yeah, so we can't quite use this simple comparison here. We're going to have to use something a little more complex, which will be our BloodHound signal. So let's load that in here. All right, let's load it in. Select our logic template. So there we go. That's the close price crossing over the anaSuperTrend. And set our signal correctly. So there you go. So it's a signal in the same direction as the trade. And there we go. We're done. Since we changed the name of our BloodHound file, let's go into this other trailing roll and replace it. Yeah, there you go. So there's the BloodHound template that we just made today with today's date, and it says BlackBird Workshop. So we'll plug that in there, and yeah, that's the logic template we want to use. Is when the two anaSuperTrends are in sync. And all right, let's save and close that and take it for a spin. Let's see, where's the market here? Okay. Now, still, if I try and go short, let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, actually, I didn't expect a short trade to actually work out. So let's see. Yeah, I can go short here. So let's move them. Well, I can go. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll stick with it here. So we can go short. And I'll generate a wick to break the anaSuperTrend line. We'll test this out. There we go. All right, so this short trade against the anaSuperTrend is just going to keep our stop loss at that fixed 20 tick stop loss. All right, there's a wick, and trade did not get closed out. Good. All right, this should close the trade out. Well, actually, no, it's not going to close the trade out. Yeah, this is not going to close the trade out because we're taking a short. All right, so let's see what happens when this bar closes. The anaSuperTrend is going to flip on us. So that anaSuperTrend should show up here somewhere. There it is. All right, I'm going to let this bar close, and then the next bar I'll have it cross the wider anaSuperTrend so that both of the SuperTrends are in sync. Okay. There we go. Okay, our wider SuperTrend, well, actually, it's not going to flip on this bar, but on the next bar. Okay, one more bar to go, and our outer SuperTrend probably going to show up around there somewhere. And let's see, there it is. It actually showed up right on our stop loss line there. Okay, yeah, so let me move the market up. Now that we're in a short trend, we'll test the wicks right on the inner super trend and make sure everything's working good. And our stop loss is now trailing right the outside super trend. Okay, there we go. We have a wick. It's breaking the super trend. Great. Didn't close the trade out. Excellent. All right, I'll generate one more wick. One more wick on this bar here. Oh, well, couldn't pull the market back in time. Okay, anyways, there we go. It closed out the trade. So, all right, the bar closed just on the other side of the super trend. It closed that trade out. Okay, I think this is working good. If you're not signed up for reminder emails, again, go to our workshop page. And you can see in the middle of the page, there you go. You can sign up for weekly email reminders. And an email, you'll receive an email 1 hour before the workshop starts. So nice little reminder there for you guys. All right, so if you're not getting those, you can sign up for whatever workshop you want. You know, you can do BlackBird only if you want, or you can do both. So just select which workshop you'd like an email for. All right, and hit the submit button there. Have a good weekend, gentlemen. Bye-bye.